Welcome to our third webinar in the series, What to Expect from Your ERP System. I'm Ruthie Sloan, Marketing Specialist for Revolution Group, and I'll be your host for our discussion today on business intelligence. I have a few housekeeping items. We will be recording this session to post on our website. So if you want to revisit the information, or if there's someone else you think would be useful to, please feel free to share. At the end, we will have a Q&A session, so please submit questions. We'd love to have those. You can just type them into your control panel on your screen. We'll do our best to get to all of those questions at the end. I'm pleased to welcome Pat Walsh of Revolution Group, Rob CPAC of EG Industries, and Dr. Kottarov with Information Builders as they discuss maximizing value with business intelligence. For those of you who don't know us, Revolution Group is a Central Ohio-based technology solutions provider founded in 1995. Our partnerships with Plex, Salesforce, Adaptive Planning, and Microsoft allow us the expertise and resources necessary to facilitate our customers' growth. We have been extremely successful in helping our customers leverage technology to revolutionize their supply chains and improve their business. On our staff, we are privileged to have ERP implementation specialists, custom developers, and ERP analysts with years of manufacturing and supply chain experience. As practice director, Pat Welsh leads our manufacturing ERP services group. He is a seasoned professional with years of experience in ERP, both in the U.S. and abroad. Rob CPAC specializes as IT manager for EG Industries in their Ohio plant in Cleveland. In his role, he coordinates all IT initiatives for the plant. He has worked for more than 20 years in manufacturing and IT, bridging the gap between IT and business processes. Dr. Kottarov is Vice President of Product Marketing for Information Builders and works with both their web-focused and iWay product divisions to provide leadership, market analysis, and create programs to drive the adoption of business intelligence, analytics, data integration, and integrated technologies. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kottarov.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us for this webinar. We're going to discuss the topic of maximizing the value of business intelligence. And the reason why this topic is important today is because despite much investment in ERP systems, building data warehouses, data marts, and other data storage structures, still it is estimated that about 78 to 85% of the employees in organizations do not get access to information and business intelligence to make fact-based decision making. And for some reason I see them now, the buttons to make. So this all points to huge adoption challenges in business intelligence and analytic technologies. And if we look at the problem has become so pervasive that even Forbes magazine wrote an article last year that business intelligence isn't very intelligent yet. It's not very complementary. Business intelligence is a discipline that has emerged 25 years ago. The term was coined by the Gartner, the analyst groups. And despite all the investment made through the years, it seems that we have continued to have significant adoption challenges. And I use the analogy with the smartphones. If we look at the market penetration, within close to 5 years, nearly half of the population on Earth is using smartphones, and business intelligence seems stuck in the adoption process. The article points to very specific reasons which continue to plague enterprises. If we look at the quote, it is we still continue to see departmental specific BI types initiatives, and that points to the silo problem. A lot of manual data manipulation, a lot of relying on batch results, moving data from databases to spreadsheets and back to something else and then analyzing it. And lastly, a lot of static reports which contain kind of an information burden for the users because we keep pushing reports. And I talk to business intelligence users who say, I have now 200 reports emailed to me or put in a folder, and I forgot which information to find in which report. So these are the main problems that continue to plague the business intelligence. But really, when we start looking at the root causes of all of the problems, rather than the specific departmental and kind of the specific symptoms in specific situations, we find that we're still living in an entangled world of ERP, so to say, analytics, where three basic things are not being followed and not being done proactively. And the first of them is not having a master data management. So we still continue to see that all of the systems are having different definitions of key metrics, different definitions of products, different definitions and different attribute information of suppliers, and etc. And that problem is so pervasive that I very recently talked to a large manufacturer in Germany, and after implementing a master data management, they said that they identified savings in the first months of $100 million due to identifying inconsistent pricing coming from suppliers through which they were not able to catch because the different items had different definitions and different descriptions and etc. So that type of problem continues to be there, and the shift to more departmental solutions of the kind of local in-memory cubes and things like that that are not fully coordinated exasperates this problem because the mistakes propagate even further. And on the one hand, we're providing easier analytics, but on the other hand, we're providing the wrong analytics. The second problem is a lack of standardized data quality. Do we trust the data? And in my experience, I see that most of the people, for most enterprises, data quality is an after fact. So it is an afterthought when a big mistake happens, when there is a big defect, a big crisis, a big recall. That's when we start thinking again about the data quality problem. And typically what happens is enterprises adopt a one-time solution. So they, so to say, to use an analogy, they clean the water of the lake once they see that the lake gets polluted. But the problem is that they don't put the systems to clean the water downstream, the water that's coming downstream. And so we are advocating strongly people to move to more automated downstream cleansing of the data in the process flow as the data is coming in the enterprise than after the fact. The third one is the low BI adoption rate. I started this presentation with it, but here I want to get to the concrete things. And the real question is, do we give right? Yes?
If I could interrupt for a minute, you're fading slightly. If you could speak up a little bit, that would be great.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So the low adoption rate is really a question of giving the right tools and the right apps to the user so they can easily access information in the most suitable for their skill level and knowledge level. So if we look, and I'll talk a lot about the last topic, if we look what's happening today still in the enterprise and what's the big change in the CIO position about data, everybody acknowledges that that data is becoming a strategic asset, and we have to use it to innovate and to kind of change both products and processes. At the same time, most of the people spend more time organizing data than actually analyzing it. So data is at the same time the most promising asset and also the one that's consuming the most time. And that second fact is what leads to the failure of projects and usually to contributes even more to the low adoption rate. So if data, why is data becoming the most important asset, and why is such an awareness about it? Because most people are realizing that there are ways to monetize and make data from the data that you've already collected with your investments. And up until 2 years ago, the only way that people thought about monetizing data was how to sell data to third parties. But nowadays, people are realizing that there are also less direct methods of monetizing on the data, and that's using data to make processes running more efficiently, to incentivize certain behaviors, to change and equalize employee performance in the organization, and as well as to reveal and utilize the true value of an asset. And we're seeing in all these three categories tremendous activity in organizations to make most use of it. And this is specifically true in manufacturing when it comes to efficiency and asset utilization and to equalizing behavior performance. The area that we see the most activity, especially with the machine-generated data, is in manufacturing. So if we look through the cycle of how you actually want to make money with the data, and I bring this cycle because we often talk about user types in the business intelligence space, but we rarely talk about how do these user types make money with the data. So if we look at the user types, typically we have the executives who are looking to the operational employees to really make decisions and contribute to the bottom line, because it's the operational employees who are actually directly influencing either revenues or costs. On the other hand, the executives are also looking at the business analysts to find insights about new opportunities and to reveal causes of certain things that are not going in the right direction in the enterprise. There is often a disconnect between the insights, and that's what's going to be the focus of my presentation from now on, between what the business analysts do, the insights they discover, and actually turning these insights into revenue. So when an analyst discovers that there is a cost-saving opportunity, it's a big question: how do we build this insight into the decision-making process, and what do we provide to the operational employees so they can use data to make decisions that affect overall costs? And in this link, typically, it is the app developers who have to build an operational decision support application so that the operational employees can get to this data quickly and make fact-based decision making. And if we look at the distribution, there is about, the percentages show the percent of labor force that falls within the category, within each category. And we see a direct correlation that the largest underserved from a business intelligence perspective category of employees are the operational employees when they have actually the largest impact on revenues and costs. So to do that and to change this situation, we need to operationalize the insights. And this is a pyramid that kind of shows you the different category of employees. And the top category, 1% and 5 to 10%, this represents the analysts in the enterprise who are really finding insights and do root cause analysis. And the rest are 15 to 20 mid-level management and operational employees. And so we have to strike a balance between the analyst using robust tools to generate insights and then putting these insights into operational applications so that the 70–80% of people can really make fact-based decisions and monetize on those insights. And from that perspective, we think that there are three types of business intelligence technologies that enable this full cycle in BI, from going from insight and analysis to decision making. And in the first category on the left side, we need the tools for the business analyst. And these are robust tools that allow the business analyst, and I emphasize here, discover. The activity that they do is they do analysis to discover insights. We need for the executive management dashboards to measure and monitor. And I emphasize that the key activity of a dashboard is not analyzing, not analysis, but measuring and monitoring. And finally, we need for the operational employees apps to get answers quickly to business questions. The operational employees do not do actually analysis. They need an answer to make decision quickly, and I'll illustrate this point. And in the business intelligence sector, in the last 25 years, we've been very good at providing tools for the analysts and providing dashboards for the executives, but we failed to provide the right apps for the operational employees. We usually try to push tools to them or dashboards to them, and these technologies prove to be insufficient. Very quickly, to explain to you why they're insufficient, I'll give you an example of the difference between an analytical dashboard and an app that actually is affecting the decision-making process of an employee. On the left-hand side, you're seeing an analytical dashboard, which shows within a call center, this is a real case, a call center application, they discovered that satisfaction is running down, and satisfaction, as you can see at the bottom, is low, equally low among all five different call centers. On the top, they're seeing a strong correlation between satisfaction and the duration of the call. Satisfaction is the highest when a call lasts about 3.5 minutes, but the majority of the calls last more than 4 minutes. And we have the same correlations are found actually with certain manufacturing defects and manufacturing processes. So this is a very good analytical dashboard that shows immediately that you have to manage appropriately the duration of the call and at the same time meaningfully solve the customer problem. But this is not something that you can give to the call center operator because it doesn't provide them enough guidance to make a decision about the duration of the call. So what it points out is that we have to take an analytical dashboard and then determine based on it what are our operational goals, how long the call should be, and then what are the incentives and the matrix to keep behavior within these bounds and to change and incent behavior to change. And on the right hand, you're seeing the actual application, and as you can see, it has a different look and feel, but also the metrics are different from duration of call, satisfaction, benchmarking against other employees, and etc., incorporating difficulty of the solution, and so and so. But the key point remains that analysis does not translate directly into a behavioral change. It requires we to build the right application from the analytical insights to drive operational performance change. Very quickly, to give you an example, with a manufacturer and a warranty application, this is from Ford Motor Company, they built an application for the dealerships because the analysts discovered that their costs warranty costs were out of line years ago with the industry's averages. And so as they investigated more, it's quite easy investigation to find that some dealerships have extremely high costs, but that also correlates with high replacement versus repair rates. But then the question is, okay, you now know the problem. How do you incent the people in the dealerships, the mechanics, to make the right decisions whether to allocate time to repair or replace? And so they build an application that provides exactly that answer. As soon as the mechanics pull out the parts and everything else, it tells them the probability of repair versus replace. So now a mechanic can immediately make a determination whether they should expend effort to investigate the repair versus immediately replacing it. And that's the real change of behavior. You're providing an incentive and making it useful to the end user by not wasting their time in making the decision and by helping them make the correct decision. So in essence and in closing, I want to say that as we plan BI nowadays, we should pay attention to 3 areas. And one is providing reporting and factual information, and that's publishing information. But more importantly, even providing apps and portals so that the frontline operational employees can self-service themselves and get, like in an app store experience, get the right applications that help them make quickly decisions. And have the agile visualization tools for the analysts so they can quickly build analysis and insights and hand them off to IT to build those operational decision support applications. And with this, I'm going to pass it back to my co-presenters.
Thank you, Rado. This is Pat Welsh, and thank you all for joining the call today. It's very insightful information from Rado Kotoroff. I'm going to speak to the business intelligence solution or business intelligence project through the lens of an ERP system or ERP projects. It's really the ERP system is a significantly growing part of business intelligence in the fact that that's where a lot of your data is being collected. Presents a significant challenge, though, in that's considerably more raw data today than what we've ever been able to collect in previous years. Today, we expect that any ERP solution implemented should allow your operators, your users, a high degree of interaction between their activities and the ERP system. So, for example, we always emphasize that the data is best collected when it happens, where it happens, and by the individual that's performing the activity. So you want to make sure that your ERP system has those capabilities to easily allow a variety of interfaces or interactions with your ERP solution to collect the data at the appropriate time. As a result, you end up with a wide variety of raw data that really is useless to decision makers throughout the organization until you can formulate the data into useful business data or actionable information that helps drive operational cost decisions, helps measure your financial planning and analysis, or allows you to monitor organizational performance. So what we see as the critical success factors in a business intelligence project is, number one, finding the right ERP solution that allows you to do all those things that we just reviewed. But from a project perspective, as in most significant enterprise projects, executive ownership is absolutely critical in that the executives can allow for direction, set direction, and help define what is important to the organization. As we all know that if the data is delivered and it's incorrect, or if it's a metric that the organization really should not be watching, it can take the organization in the wrong direction just as easily as it can in the right direction. Which is why it's important to clearly define the requirements and goals of the project. And most importantly, in the context of an ERP system and an ERP deployment, common processes should be deployed across the entire enterprise. That allows you to gather the data in a common and timely fashion way across all your manufacturing enterprise, which ultimately ends up, as Rado mentioned earlier, that allows the data to be cleansed and come clean into the lake. I like the analogy of the lake. So upstream, the data is being cleaned. If your ERP system is really the upstream driver of the data collection, that's really where you want to focus on your processes and how the data is introduced to the environment. Naturally, in any business intelligence project, you want to make sure that the team is comprised of manufacturing and operational associates. IT plays a very important role, but it makes the most sense. We've seen the most success in our customer base where IT plays a supportive role and the project is driven by operations or the business. It goes without saying that you need to investigate and establish your best-of-breed business intelligence tool. The last point I have is best-of-breed we see most definitely should include some type of self-service component. As Rado mentioned earlier in his presentation, There are a number of different ways that users are going to access the data, or they're going to want to see the data. But what we see in our customer base is just as soon as you put a metric out in front of a business user or decision maker, that drives them to look or want to investigate that metric in a different view or spin the information in a different way. The better your tool is that you can deploy to that business user that allows them to spin the information on their own without a development cycle or a loop back through the business analyst or IT, the quicker they're going to be able to make their decisions and get to the answers that they need. Some of the most common metrics that we see across all our manufacturing customer base I have listed here on the screen, and we don't need to talk about these in detail. I think most everyone, if you're in manufacturing, you've seen these metrics or heard from them. The most important, though, or the most significantly that we tend to see is coming out of manufacturing operations, and that's everything with regard to how your machines and your people in the production shop floor are measured and how the throughput of your products and through the process are being measured. So in a traditional BI stack, there are a number of building blocks that are required really to get your data, gather your data together, rationalize it, commonize it through some semantic layer across multiple systems, and then serve it to your business users, either through dashboards, reports, or some type of ad hoc reporting, or a number of the methods that Rado mentioned earlier in the presentation. What we're seeing today in terms of your ERP system is we would expect that your ERP system or your implementation process would take your organization a very long way to addressing the three stacks underlying the data on the right-hand side, so that as a business intelligence project, you can really focus on the two building blocks on the left-hand side and implementing your best of breed business reporting solution. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to Rob CPAC from EG Industries.
Thanks, Pat. Hello, everyone. Great context so far. Let's see if I can keep up with the pace. So I'm the IT manager for EG Industries. EG Industries in whole is an auto parts manufacturer. We have several locations throughout the U.S. We are a Tier 1 and Tier 2 supplier to to the big three, primarily GM and Chrysler, and then some other companies underneath inside there. The Cleveland division that I work out of, we do a chrome plating on plastic for the automotive industry. So with that statement alone, you can see that it's probably a very delicate procedure that we do by putting chrome on plastic and putting a metal substrate on a plastic substrate. So we're globally competitive throughout that organization, and trying to get access to our data is a key piece that we need. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the needs that we went through and how the BI helped us deliver what we wanted in our day-to-day business operations. So as I said, some of our parts that we manufacture come directly from our customers. Most of the stuff that we do it internally, so we have different plants. We have some plastic injection molding plants to produce the parts for us, route those into our Cleveland location where we primarily do only chrome plating on that plastic. Just so we're an all-in-one solution to the auto parts manufacturer, but on the same thing, we keep everything internal. We do some assembly work in there, and we have other divisions that do decorative pad printing, aluminum processing, and some powder coating. I'm not going to speak to those points. I'm going to speak to what I know about, and that's the chrome plating aspect of it. As I said earlier, if anyone can remember back in their chemistry classes, when you're marrying two different materials together, sometimes you have a perfect marriage, other times you have problems. One of the things that we face is we have a lot of scrap that falls out on it. Again, When you're trying to plate plastic with a metal substrate, you know, I'd love to sit there and say that 100% of the time it's a perfect process, but unfortunately it doesn't always work that way. So we need to continually monitor our scrap. One of the sayings we have internally here is, you know, scrap is eating our lunch. And literally there's a truth to that, because if our scrap is too high, it starts cutting into our bottom line. So we need to stay on top of monitoring those metrics, reacting to them, and then figuring out how to correct them. So we needed some very stringent BI tools to help us deliver on that. And again, you know, everyone's kind of familiar with this. You know, as the business grows and people change, you start to develop, you know, new ways of doing things, and somebody comes up with their own special query or their own Excel spreadsheet, or they get data from one spot to another spot. And that's kind of where we found ourselves, is everyone was grabbing data from different areas, you know, and yeah, they were coming up to the same conclusion, but there was a lot of waste in there. There was a lot of waste of people spending, you know, up-teen hours gathering data. And in the end, it really didn't help us, because we were more of a reactive as opposed to a proactive solution. So we wanted to get together with Revolution Group that helped us, and we kind of, you know, laid out some goals of what we want to get. You know, we want the tool to work for us, and, you know, as Pat kind of said earlier in there, you know, defining those requirements. You know, making sure that we have a executive ownership on it, that everyone's buying into what we want to do on this. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on how the reports work for us and what we got out of them. As I said a little earlier in there, we have a very large plating line. If I do believe correctly, we are about the 5th largest plating line in the U.S. Just to give you an idea on that, our plating line sits in a warehouse of about 100,000 square feet, and it occupies a good chunk of that warehouse. So it's hard to visualize, but it's a very large plating line in there. We process somewhere in the neighborhood of about 50 to 60,000 parts a week. So it's a lot of material moving through our warehouse, and we need to be able to track that material, A, of what we're shipping out, but, you know, what the percentage of scrap that comes off of that. You know, one of the challenges we face in it, as I kind of mentioned earlier, is if our scrap is too high, we're losing money. So we need to try to maintain that scrap at a reasonable level, and we need the tools to help us track that down. And again, different things can have different effects on the plater, as we call it in here, and how we run it in there. And I want to kind of give a little background on where we were coming from to where we got to, and I'll try to explain it the best I can, and we can probably open up to some Q&A at the end. So we have an ERP system that works very well, does everything we want for it, and we also have a plating line that works very well and does everything what we want for it. However, trying to marry those two together is not always the easiest of challenges. Our plater line is strictly PLC driven, you know, in a manufacturing environment. You know, it's machines that are driving it. As I put it, our ERP system works, and it's human driven. But you're trying to get the two marrying together and talking to each other so you can get some good data out of them. And we do have, you know, certain aspects of that, but we have other issues where we lose visibility of a part once it enters our plater. And then when it comes out at the other end, you know, we gain visibility to it again, but we need to know what happened during that process. And we need to be able to handle that quickly when it happens in there. So on the screen here, I have some of the BI reports that we use. And again, if anyone remembers from an Excel spreadsheet, they're not always the prettiest things to look at. You know, you kind of, unless you know what you're looking at a lot of numbers that can kind of be a quick turnoff to the data you want. We wanted a tool that was kind of met a couple different needs for us. We didn't really want an Excel spreadsheet, so to speak. We wanted a report that was very user-friendly, something that anyone can jump on, and not a whole lot of a learning curve to it. You know, on the screen here you see that it's your standard bar chart report. And right off the bat, most people have seen these reports, and they can kind of get an idea of what's going on in there. You know, maybe we got to do a little bit of digging, but, you know, right off the bat, you can sit there and say, wow, you got some large spikes going on. The one thing that we liked about this tool, and again, I know it might be a little hard to see, but any of those bars that we see where we have huge spikes on, we can start drilling into that data. And I'm going to try to explain this the best I can verbally. So we put a plastic part, and we put it on what we call a flight bar. A flight bar is, if I can kind of describe it, a rack that we use that we dip inside a tank. So if anyone's ever seen a plating line or a plating process, or if you remember back in chemistry, you attach a part to some type of a rack, and it kind of dips into different tanks as it goes through the process, and it adheres to different metal contents in there. As I said, comes out the other end. Hopefully it looks beautiful and shiny, and we can put it on somebody's new car, and they can drive it off the lot. Looks good. But in the case when we start having scrap issues, if we had like specks or something in there that would create a not so pretty plastic part for a customer, we need to know about that. We need to be able to react to that quickly. And again, we have certain levels of scrap that, as in any industry, you have an acceptable scrap fallout or acceptable loss, and then you have ones that are not so acceptable. So the report I have on the screen kind of goes through our different part numbers we have on there, and then as you can see, you can kind of drill into each one of these. And again, I know this is not a dynamic report we're seeing here, but we wanted to be able to present a tool to the end user to use and right off the bat be able to see what was happening without having to crunch any numbers or look at an Excel spreadsheet to figure out what was going on. We wanted the system to do it for them, and they can answer their own questions. And again, especially from an IT standpoint, it wasn't something that I wanted to have to manage on a day-to-day basis. I didn't want to have my department having to sit there and update a SQL query or put some data out there that they can have access to. We wanted it to be let the system deliver the data and let the system deliver the data in a user-friendly format. And Revolution Group really helped us in delivering that end result that we wanted. So if I have a customer that comes in, or one of the engineers are coming in, they're trying to figure out what happened on second shift last night, they could pull this report up, and right off the bat, whenever they see a huge spike, they can start seeing, hey, we got an issue going on here, and we can start making the changes that we needed to if it was a chemical process or a plastic substrate or any variety of situations that they had to react to. And again, it clearly identifies it right away, so we're more looking at a proactive solution as opposed to a reactive solution, where we can kind of step ahead of the scrap issue before, I use that term again, starts eating our lunch, and start drilling into the root cause of that. And again, all this data is live. It's coming right off the system as it's happening. There is no updating on the back end. It's real time. And that was one of the main things we were after, is to be able to sit there and have a very speedy process to get into it. And we wanted anyone to be able to use this, not just IT or not just a business expert, but we wanted to be able to put this tool in the hands of the people that are on the floor, that run this on a day-to-day basis and are working with the parts right off the bat, where they can make those executive decisions and we can empower them to make those decisions, that when they start seeing a spike in something, either they can react to it or they can make the phone call to their supervisor on how they need to react to whatever that situation might be. And I said it before, everyone wants a user-friendly tool to use. They want something they can just jump into and use it right off the bat. And this tool delivered beyond any way I can expand on it, on how well it was easy to use. Anyone can come into it and right off the bat be able to get a good idea. And the one thing I liked about it personally from it was, it allowed anyone to drill into the data and to get down all the way down to that, that specific issue that happened on it. But it also gave it, where I have the power users that maybe want the raw data to work through in Excel. This tool allowed them to deliver on that, and allowed them to do that export into an Excel file so they can work with it offline, or maybe, do some other pivot tables to it. So it really, at the end of the day, it really delivered the solution that we were looking for. It allowed us to, as we defined our requirements and goals, to deliver on those requirements and goals. And again, it was a tool that everyone could use in the organization. It wasn't just, IT or manufacturing, or, somebody did it this way. It was the same tool that everyone used, that everyone was looking at the same data. So we weren't always challenging each other where that data came from. We were all on the same page with that. I'll go over some of these bullet points, but we kind of talked about them in there. But again, these are what we're looking for: real-time access to our data, and it delivered to it to a T on that one. It gave us quicker visibility into any of our needs, any of our production reporting that we went through. Especially as we're transferring from shift to shift, and we're kind of, passing on a status report of what happened on it. We could still do that, but they have the data to go back or forth in time to look at that, to see what was going on in real time or see what was happening last night, to see if there was a trend occurring or if this was something that came out of nowhere. An intuitive interface, and I wish I could show you the demo on that, but it was a very intuitive interface where anyone can jump onto it, use it right off the bat, and get a clear understanding of how to interpret the data that was being presented to them. And again, an intuitive report for management to use and to get the data out that they were looking for. And with that, I'll leave it. I'll pass it off to Pat, or Revolution Group, I should say.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you all of our presenters for that information, that very useful information today. We're going to take questions. If anyone has any, please submit those through your screen. Rob, a question for you. What are your next steps? What's on the horizon for you? Is there anything additionally you want to do with your data or information?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. One of the things that we're going after next is we have scrap reasons. We would like to eventually even get a little deeper into that, and I'll just kind of go into some of the projects we're working on is, if I can ask how that scrap, if whatever that scrap reason occurred, how did it occur? What was the other variables that might have been involved in that? Maybe a temperature of the tank, or how long a part's spent in the tank, the in-between things that you don't really see until you start really asking those questions when you see it, where we could better define how the problem occurred from it. And I think that with that base of that tool we have, we'll be able even to get into that, once we start integrating, as I put it, temperature, maybe what the pH level is in one of the tanks. I don't want to go into the scientific side because I'm not a scientist, but any of those chemistry type questions that they ask a lot if that's an outlying variable for it. So to sum that up, just a more integration into the data that is coming off of the PLC.
Excellent, thank you. Pat, a question for you. It seems like there's so much data and so much information. What's kind of a good starting point if a company's interested in developing some BI, business intelligence from that data?
Well, I think that the best place to start from a requirements gathering standpoint is to get an understanding from your business users what kind of questions they're trying to answer on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis, maybe even quarterly and annual basis. Every company has its own metrics that management are paying attention to. Whether you're aware of them or where the organization is very aware of them is always another question. And they always have their own view on those metrics. So, for example, we have on my slide one of our manufacturing metrics that we see in almost every dashboard or business intelligence project is the measurement of what I refer to as throughput, or a lot of our customers will refer to it as cycles per hour or hits per hour. It's essentially a measurement of how well your operations, your manufacturing operation is performing against target. So the most important thing to do first off is to investigate and interview your business users to get an understanding of what's important to them, both at a high-level metric standpoint, as well as on a day-to-day basis. What kind of information, questions are they asking every day that it takes them a lot of time to answer?
Very good. I'll wait just a second here to see if any more questions come in. I do have a question from Rick. Thank you for submitting. His question is, who develops and creates the reports, Revolution Group or the user company?
Well, I think either Rob or myself could answer that question.
Yeah.
I guess I'll take a pass at it, and Rob, you can.
Yep. Go ahead, Pat, and then I'll jump in afterwards.
Sure. So the underlying data in the case of EG Industries is coming out of a couple of sources, and building the underlying database, the underlying data source Revolution was involved in, but taking the reports and expanding those reports and building the different views, the different types of analysis over the wide data sources was really an Ernie Green EG Industries task. I think that's a fair statement. Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, Pat, I think I'll kind of summarize how we got to what we wanted the report to look like, and then kind of where you said your expertise on what's going to work well for us, just from best practices. Everyone kind of they come to a conclusion where they need a better reporting system, but on the same thing, they usually have some sort of an underlying report of what they currently use. And I think that's kind of where we started. We had the data of what we were looking for. And if I can remember back into this, we kind of presented some of the Excel spreadsheets that we worked through and what we were looking at. And I think that was kind of a landing point, just to kind of give you the rough idea of, hey, this is the data of what we're tracking internally now. And that's what we kind of want to go after. And then, working with Revolution Group and their developers, they can start asking the questions like, okay, I see this. Now we just got to figure out where that data is coming from, and then how we're going to put it into a rich user interface that still gives the same idea of what we were tracking in there. So again, I think it's a lot of working back and forth between the two. But as Pat said in there, very early on, that strategy of clearly defining those requirements or the goals of what you want after in there, and also a little bit of the executive ownership in there, because somebody's got to own that data and make sure that when we own that data, we hand it off to Revolution Group, and then they kind of, as I put it, make it something beautiful and hand it back to us that we believe in the data that is true. We vetted it out and made sure it was accurate.
Rob, Pat, it's Rado. I have a question for you. So,
yes.
How many of your users do you think create reports versus what percentage just get reports out of the systems? I mean, that's very fascinating that you try to push as much to be done for the end users rather than them doing it themselves. So I wanted to kind of question, what's the percentage of each category of users?
Do you want to answer that, Rob? Or?
Yeah, I'll answer some of that from our standpoint, just how we use it internally. The dashboard that we use, I would say a good majority of our senior executive team uses it. Our manufacturing floor supervisors use it regularly. And the one thing that we try to push out of it is we're all using the same data, It's not coming from different spots. And I think that was one of the challenges we faced prior to this is everyone had a different area where they grabbed the data. And maybe it was 90% the same data, but, maybe they added an extra column in, or they did something different to it where you can make an Excel number do anything you wanted to if you added the right formula behind it. We wanted everyone to be on the same page. So, from the report that we currently use on this, I would say it's probably a 90% buy-in. You're always going to have, as I put it, maybe an accountant or, a salesperson that maybe just wants a little bit different side of the data that they use. But for the most part, internally at Ernie Green, we all use the same data. That was the one thing we wanted to make sure that it's the same user interface that everyone sees, and it's the same data that everyone's working off of.
Yeah.
I would say that most of our customers have the smaller percentage of users, business users, and analysts that are preparing the underlying reports, and the executives, management, and operational folks are consuming the information. We have a number of customers, though, that have what I would consider to be a power user on the business side that have taken the reports or the report building utility and expanded on the data, on the view of the data in terms of viewing it in different ways and slicing the information in different ways. We also see business users take what I would consider to be the lightweight utilities to actually pivot the data in different ways. So they may take a straightforward report or a chart or graph, and then on the fly essentially pivot the data to look at it differently. So that's a wide variety of users that are doing that, not just the business analysts or the technical folks. I would say though that generally doesn't happen at the executive level.
All right, very good. Looks like we have another question. This question's for Pat. What are your thoughts on SQL Server reporting services for building dashboards for SQL-based data?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I'm the right one to address it, because I'm not the technical part of our team, or I'm probably not technical enough. I'll address it initially, and then maybe we can get the contact information from whoever's asking that. I can connect you to the right people. But my initial thoughts are that the whole Microsoft stack really requires a fair amount of work and really a fair amount of building that you have to do, creation, I'm going to call it, whereas a BI solution like Information Builders really brings a lot of that to the table for you without having to build the infrastructure, so to speak. But if you would please, if we have an email contact, we can reach out. I'll put you in contact with one of our technical experts.
All right, that looks like all of our questions. Thank you, gentlemen, again for presenting. It was a great webinar, lots of great information. If you have any questions after the webinar, please feel free to contact Revolution Group. We are happy to assist and would love to talk with you about how we can help with your ERP needs. And be sure to register for the rest of the webinars, what to expect from your ERP system. Once again, thank you, everyone, and have a great day.